Welcome to episode 180, if you get that darts reference there. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Sarah, down in Sydney. How's the Sarah? How's the rain?
How's the Sarah?
How's the Sarah?
The Sarah is good. The rain is really annoying. And I just checked the weather. I've got another 10 days of it down here.
Oh, wow.
It's insane. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's like
the whole East Coast is getting battered by it.
Yeah, it's not good. The roads are completely destroyed. You know, it's like avoiding potholes is like a whole game in itself, you know.
Well, yeah, that's it. It's a board game in that somewhere. Pothole Kingdom, something like that.
Yeah, there is.
That's a different board game.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on, we actually joined by two very special guests and also like Board Game Barbecue community members. We have Kenny Michael-Otton, and we're also joined by Leigh Perrott. And I was constantly reminded it is like Perrott, like the ferret, because I would have probably said it wrong. So, and I always get told by MJ, because MJ's brother's name is Grant, and she's like, no, it's Grant. Because of my Pommy accent, I say Grant, and she's like, no. So I have to say, it's not Grant like aunt, it's Grant like aunt.
Yeah.
And that's how I remember it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
So,
exactly.
yeah, welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
Why don't we start with you, Kenny, man? Like, how did you start getting into the board game hobby itself, and what are you working on, and what sort of projects are you doing, and how did you end up here with us today?
Sure. So usually I trace my board game lineage back to watching Pokemon as a kid when I was 5. But really what that led into is watching more anime, and eventually watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Really got into it in primary school. From Yu-Gi-Oh! I ended up playing Duel Masters. Duel Masters led to Magic. Magic led to me being in game stores a lot more, which led to Settlers, and kind of the rest was history. I normally attribute kind of the first game that really got me into the hobby, though, was Power Grid. And Agricola was the one that made me want to design games.
Oh, wow.
So I played that a long, long time ago, and I played it 20, 30 times.
What was it about Agricola that made you want to design a game?
I don't know what it was. I think it was actually just that it was so challenging, right? Like, I mean, I know that's something that a lot of people don't like about Agricola, and that it feels quite punishing and quite tight. But I just remember as a teenager just going through this struggle of trying to feed my family and being able to do it well. And no other game I'd played before had really done that. Plus, on top of that, because we played it so frequently, we were able to play with the drafting variant. And so there was just so much depth in the game when we were going through that. So it was such a good time. But yeah, since then I've been in the hobby now for like 19 years. So since I was 9 years old.
Oh,
so
wow.
Quite a long time. And at the moment, for the past, I think it's like 2 years and a month or something like that, I've been working on a game called Scrap, which some listeners may have heard of before. But yeah, Scrap's what I've been working on.
Yeah, nice. And yourself, Leigh? Like, how did you develop an interest in board gaming, and what are you kind of working on?
I guess growing up, I was just surrounded by games, really. My family is pretty lucky. A lot of spare time. At home, in our house, homework was banned. Like, playing games was the thing.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a good place to grow up.
Yeah, not too bad. So my mum put a ban on homework, and then my dad's side of the family, they just religiously play card games. So every Sunday, it's like going to church. They're playing card games, a bit more yelling than you'd expect at church. But so, from both sides, just games all around. And to top it off, 3 older brothers who are just teaching me games. Like, I was 4 or 5 years old and learning how to play 500, Euchre, Hearts, those types of games.
So it was exclusively card games, or did you play some board games as well?
I guess to begin with, but no, I mean, being the 90s, like, PC games we played so many PC games. I couldn't list them. We were just crazy about them. So PC games, like LAN games, all that type of stuff growing up with my brothers. I guess in terms of board games, like, I have memories of, like, Space Crusade was one at a very young age.
Space Crusade. I still have Space Crusade.
Yeah, that's like the Warhammer 40k version of Hero Quest.
Yeah,
so I remember all the little bits and all of that sort of thing. So even at a young age, but also one that just, it just struck me like recently that it's, it's a Euro game, was Master Labyrinth. We used to play that. It's like a derivative of the Amazing Labyrinth.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I had
German
the Amazing
designed-
Labyrinth. I didn't have the other one.
Okay, yeah, so Master Labyrinth was similar, added a bit more complexity, but it was one that we kept coming back to, and now I probably appreciate why. With all the, it's just amazing how far modern board games have come, and that sort of crept up on me when I've sort of jumped back into the hobby. But I guess also I've had I've definitely had a background in playing games competitively as well. I could probably go on, but essentially,
go on. What, such as what?
So as a teenager, me and my brothers, we had a bit of a team playing like a first-person shooter game competitively.
Is that
Which one
Counter-Strike?
was it?
It's Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, not that
cool.
well
Okay.
known, but we got in a few Australia-wide tournaments and actually won a couple of them. So
Nice.
with all our the hours of playing games paid off there. But then out of high school, like I never had the normal first job. I never had that experience of working at a supermarket or working at a bakery and actually doing something with hard work. My first job was playing online poker. So
Wow. That's
I
a cool
sort of-
first job.
it sounds cool.
Yeah.
It's actually really not. I mean, it's interesting, but I wouldn't encourage anyone to do that. But I was interested in poker when it was there's such a craze about Texas Hold'em, and I just started playing on one of these European websites where like, here's 1 cent for free, play the game and you win 5 cents if you win the table. So yeah, kept playing, and after a month I had 20 real dollars, and
After a
month
month. Okay,
after
so that's why you're
yeah.
not recommending it, right? A month.
Well, he
month and
started-
$20.
there's plenty of reasons not to recommend it. Like I've probably played for 4 or 5 years, worked my way up really to the top sort of stakes in terms of single table tournament poker. And there's a lot of money on the line. Like if my internet would disconnect, I could potentially lose $2,000 or $3,000 on the screen in front of me.
Right.
Wow.
And just that thing where like it's just strange to be exposed to that sort of like win-loss, the psychological
that
effect.
kind of risk is
Yeah.
scary at that age, especially. Yeah.
It seems to be
Intense.
just to jump in. I had a similar thing, not so much with online poker, but I was also a competitive gamer when I was a teenager, mainly around card games and everything. So I was on the pro tour for Magic at one point. I won a few national championships for a few different games. So I've had that tournament background, and yeah, when I hit 18, the first thing I did when I hit 18 was go to the casino because the allure of card games and gambling for money was so big. And I remember very distinctly being turned off of gambling after I went to Crown Casino one day. And it wasn't actually anything to do with the fact, I lost some money. Like I lost a lot of money quite quickly. But it wasn't even to do with that. It was just going, but I'm just bored now. Like it didn't even occur to me that I'd lost all of that money.
There's really this transition between playing a game and competing in a game. And you find that happens, like that sucks the life out of it to some extent. There is some
100%.
fun to be had in competing, and you're striving to beat someone else or beat your own personal best, but there's also you're no longer playing, you're competing. So the fun I get out of the fun I had from poker was really studying the game. So I was big into the math, big into the statistics, all of that type of stuff. So I've spent probably twice the amount of time studying the game of poker than actually playing it. So even though I made all this money, if you looked at like my hourly rate, if you take into the fact how many hours I was sinking into it, sure, it's not bad. I was able to move out of home, but was it worth, like if you were offered a job where the boss was like, oh yeah, come work for us, now at the end of the month we'll roll a dice and see if you get paid or if you pay out. So like, are you going to take that job? Like maybe 1 month.
No,
Well,
the
maybe 1 month
the
you'll
cushiness.
get,
the security wasn't
$5,000.
there.
But then the next month it's like your boss is like, oh, you owe us, $3,000 this month. How would you feel about that job?
So I hit 4 2s on the river.
Yeah. There you go.
It doesn't sound great when you say it.
Ironically,
Sounds stressful.
I've never gambled a single cent in a casino. like physically. I'm completely averse to gambling, so
Well, not
there's a lesson in
completely.
there somewhere.
Online is
You are
fine.
now. You are
Yeah.
now. So you weren't before.
So what made
But,
you decide to get into the design side of it, Leigh?
I guess I was really into rediscovering modern board games, and just dove into the hobby and just enjoyed it so much. My flatmate had planted the seed at the back of my head. He was like, "Oh, you'd be really good at designing board games," and I was like, "Nah, that's a terrible idea. Do you know how much time these people would spend? And like at the end of it, like you're not going to make any money." And so at the time, I completely disregarded it. But mid-COVID, with twiddling my thumbs at home over the new year, I was like, maybe it wasn't such a bad idea. And it was at that point that I really got into it. And it's just been discovery to me. It's just combined so many different things that I love, and it's been a great experience so far.
Sounds like you already had the mind for it. Like if you were sort of, analyzing poker and the probability and things like that, it sounds like you're thinking, already sort of behind the scenes brain there. So it seemed like an
it's interesting
transition.
because at the end of high school is, you're looking up what jobs to do, what career paths and things. And I'm sure at that stage I would have seen, game design, and I'm like, but there's no future there. It's like so competitive. It's so, and even like I was quite interested in design in high school, but I just went towards the maths and the science for whatever reason. And so it's great to come back and really explore those different sort of more creative areas.
So we're all kind of in the same community. Like we all talk amongst each other quite a lot. Sarah and I have play tested both of your games.
Yeah, we
right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you play tested each other's yet?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we have.
In fact, that was actually
wow. So we've all played all the games. Like that's so
look
cool.
at us go. Dream team.
I think that Leigh and I actually met because Leigh play tested my game. That was the first time I met him.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
and
cool.
Sarah was in that game as well.
Yeah, and that was the first time Sarah had play tested it as well.
Yeah, wow, okay, cool.
Big happy family.
That's interesting. Yeah, right. So we see a lot of first-time designers and stuff coming up. What do you feel about like being a first-time designer in this part of the world? Do you think that nowadays with modern communication and logistics and stuff, I mean, obviously logistic prices are expensive, but logistics of being able to email and have constant communication with someone like Kickstarter and suppliers and your audience, do you think it's easier now potentially? Kenny, go for it, because I know you're going to look at Kickstarter and stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes I feel like I'm an American designer, right? And the reason for that is because for the first maybe 4 or 5 months, about 90% of my playtesters were from America. And that was just because of my playtesting schedule, where I tended to be more free during the day here when most Aussies were working. And at night, I'd be busy doing other things. And so kind of the fact that we had Tabletop Simulator and online communication and Facebook and everything has definitely made the community more globalized. And it's much easier to gain access and contacts in different markets now, which is fantastic. I mean, on the manufacturing logistics side as well, I know that I've had several Chinese manufacturing companies, when I've posted about my game, reach out to me and just offer to do quotes and answer questions and everything. So I definitely think it's much easier now to get into the publishing and game design realm than it would have been some years ago. I have a lot of respect for people who got in many years ago, because it would have been, in my head, so much harder.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I think that's just in general. I think that obviously technology in general tries to make things easier for us, like as a society. So therefore, I think that as it grows and it gets bigger and everyone gets more interconnected, things do become easier, despite the pandemic and the past two years of dramas. So,
yeah.
And yourself, Leigh. Like, I mean, I spoke then briefly about Kenny. You're taking your game to Kickstarter, right, Kenny? Like, that's your plan, is Scraps going to Kickstarter?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, but Leigh, from my understanding, you're going to do the other route. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Or
So
is that...
my skills end at the design. So the end of the design.
Yeah.
I just know I wouldn't be able to handle the publisher side of things, and I think a lot of the challenges, like, you know, at the moment are probably on the publisher side of things in terms of you know, having to worry about manufacturing China and shipping and all of these other things. So I just accept that, you know, I've got a skill set within the design space, but once we get towards the publishing, the marketing, that side of things, my aim is to handball that off to someone else. Obviously, as a designer, you're a big part of all of it. But yeah, I can see there's definitely, you know, I have a lot of respect for anyone who goes into, you know, kickstarting their own game, because it needs such dedication and passion to take it the whole way through. And it's, I'm excited to see, you know, Scrap make it, you know, the whole way through that process. And I think Kenny's got that passion and that enthusiasm to actually see it through. So really excited.
So, Leigh, what is your plan then to approach publishers?
Yeah, I guess like, I'm very methodical in my approach. So in terms of my design, I'm probably about like 70% of the way through designing the game that I'm working on. So I think before I'm at that stage, I'm really going to research more about how to approach publishers. And I think you would really want to do your research in terms of just who to approach, because there's no use coming to a publisher with a particular type of game without, you know, realizing, you know, what's in their catalog, exactly where your game would fit. What's the proposition to them? Because you know, you're asking so much of the publisher. Like, here's my
There's no point in going to Eagle Griffin Games with 500 minis and 10,000 dice. Like, it's not usually in their wheelhouse, but they don't have one in their wheelhouse, so maybe they are the right people for the job. Maybe they need one of those games.
Maybe they're looking for a minis game. You don't know.
Yeah, what I was going to say was, definitely, I think you want to do your research first, because it also shows that you're more than just kind of taking a shotgun approach, if that makes sense, and just kind of chucking it at every single publisher and hoping that someone will pick it up. You're actually a bit more deliberate if you know about the publisher beforehand.
And I mean, it's a small community. I mean, it's a global community of publishers and designers and all of this, but it's a small community. So, like, I mean, at this stage, I'm just really trying to interact within the community, because you want to, you know, build some presence within the community before you even reach out to publishers. So you want to show that you're in there for the right reasons, and you're not just trying to, you know, suck up to a publisher or that type of thing. So you have to be genuine and actually contribute to the community, because it's, you know, word will get around within a design community if you're doing good things and if you're, you know, a good person to work with. So, and, you know, if you're pitching to a publisher, it's not just about your game. It's about you, and it's about showing that you're committed to the game as a project as well.
For sure.
Yeah, do you think that has a lot to do as well with the fact that, you know, the board game hobby in itself, it's a small industry. So, you know, I guess that exposes the people that are in that industry a little bit more, like all facets of their personality, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's, I mean, a lot of designers, like, they're so integrated with their publishers, and they're, you know, it's not just a business relationship, it's a personal relationship. Like, they're good friends with the people publishing their games. So it's, you know, in a community like this, it's not just a business transaction. So it's really, you know, a big part of it is just being a part of the community and contributing.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
It's even just that appearance of, when I say the appearance of being authentic, I mean, I don't think anyone here would question that we're all gamers, right? Like, we're all very much a part of the hobby and very authentic, and we like playing board games and sitting around and chatting and all that kind of stuff. But it's making that known to other people as well, that where, you know, you're not just kind of trying to cash grab on a board game hotness thing or anything like that, that you are actually a board gamer through and through. So I totally agree with your comments around being an active part of the community. That's definitely something that helps out a lot.
Yeah, I think if you're in it for a cash grab, you're in the wrong
You're
industry.
definitely,
definitely barking up the
100%.
wrong tree.
But you know what? It's amazing. Like, I know that designers play games, like, for the most part, they don't just design, but like, it seems that everybody we've spoken to plays games in some kind of fashion, apart from the Miko who doesn't play any games. Like
And that was a shock,
everybody's
right?
involved.
Like
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
a total shock to us, and we didn't know what to
Yeah.
say.
So you're saying they design games but don't play games?
No, he's not a designer. He's an artist.
Yeah,
He's an artist.
The Miko is the artist for all of the
Garfield
the
games.
Garfield games. The
Not all of them, but
the Shem Phillip ones, and then
A
there's
lot of them.
Sam
Yeah.
Phillips who does some of the other ones.
and he also did
Yeah.
Merchant's Cove, and he's doing stuff with Johnny Pack as well. So yeah,
Endless Winter. But yeah, it was kind of, everyone just, I suppose now it's at the point that there's so many people that do play games as well. It's a shock when someone doesn't. It's like, what? You don't play games? What are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. But
what are you doing
I
with
think
your
that
life, right?
Yeah, right. It is a small knit community, man, and it is like everyone plays and does things. Sarah's just dropped something. Did you just drop your massive jug?
I'm being
thing?
attacked by a wasp. Okay, so excuse, I do not like bugs, and that's nasty. I'm sorry, I've got to kill it.
Oh no!
I have to kill it. Oh my god! Before it kills me. Before it kills me. Oh shit! Now it's like angry. Oh no! I have to kill.
Is this
how I said
the final cut?
I'm not. I guess Sarah's gone. We lost Sarah. She's been stung by a wasp, but we will press on.
Oh my god! I'm
You
vegan, and I'm just like attacking this. I gotta.
Yeah,
oh,
really went at it.
I'm gonna take a photo of this fucking.
She sounds like she's like a crazy person. There's no way I'd want to mess
I'm
with her.
sorry, but
She's
wasps.
like a lunatic.
I draw the line at wasps. Like if it was a bee, I'd be less freaked out. But that
Wasps are crazy. They are insane. As far as I'm sure you guys have probably seen like the subreddit like Nature is Metal. I feel like wasps are like the most metal insects. They are
scorpions are the
insane.
most metal, but hornets and wasps are pretty close.
Oh, they
Definitely.
mess everything up.
Yeah,
They are not good.
I'm so sorry.
I would trying to steer us slightly back on track out of
I think
Sarah
we should leave that in.
massacring
But yeah,
a bunch of bugs.
Yeah.
But basically,
Fair enough.
I just wanted to clarify something from the last podcast. Actually, the one before that, when we had Motor City Games on, I left a question on the show notes that said the blip ? And that was all it said.
Are you going to ask this of anyone? And by the way, couldn't you have given just a little slightly more info, instead of just having that as the question?
I disconnected and I assumed that no one would mention it. No one talk about it. Sarah just goes,
I'm
so
like, I
guys,
want to know.
the blip, right? And then they're like, what? The blip? And she's like, yeah, I don't know. And then Adam started talking about Thanos and stuff. But I actually really liked his theory of like, why doesn't Thanos just make everyone half the size so they consumed half the resources? I thought that was a great idea.
I thought that was great as well.
I'm down with that. That's a fantastic idea. But it all fair. And he also mentioned, I don't know if you guys know, but in the 1970s was when we were at our half population. So he's basically just taken us back 50 years and then we're going to be back to full population again, which I found also really fascinating.
But apparently we're going to plateau. Have you seen that TED Talk? 11 billion.
I don't know.
That'll probably be
we're up and then on the way down.
Yeah. As developed countries get more, as countries get more developed, people have less children, and so it will end up plateauing.
Okay.
A chilling vision
I'll
of
see
things
the
to
11
come.
billion and we'll see it. Exactly.
But board gamers
Haunting.
won't stop having at least 2 kids because they need that 4-player count, right? So
They need to build their engine.
yeah, that's right. But they need
the-
workers. They need workers.
I was going to say, you see, in the old days, people used to have children because they needed more hands on the farm. Now they just need more hands to play with the virtual farm.
With the virtual farm, exactly.
That's it. But back to the blip question. Sorry, Sarah, I left you in the dark about that.
Yeah,
what it actually
that was
was going to
bad.
be was, I don't know if you've seen Avengers Endgame, Lee and Kenny.
I have.
But basically the blip is when everybody disappeared for 5 years and then they came back 5 years later, but everyone else had still, half the population had still continued with their lives. So what would you prefer? Would you prefer to be blipped out of existence and stay 5 years younger and come back like nothing had ever happened? Or would you rather stay and live your life with the half population and still keep like muddling through a bit of a Mad Maxy kind of style world?
I would definitely stay, because imagine what type of practical jokes you can do given 5 years when you know these people are going to come back. Like, you could set up some elaborate stuff.
Yeah,
No, but they were all sad and they didn't know.
Well,
yeah, you wouldn't know.
No one would choose that option. It's so sad. Like, there's no way I would choose that. Yeah, of course I'd rather blip. I'd rather blip out.
My knowledge of the film is showing.
I mean, I guess here's the question though: do I know I'm coming back? If I blip out, do I know in 5 years?
No.
Okay, so it's questionable, right? I could just be dead. Well, I mean,
Yes.
I wouldn't just choose death, right?
Choose life.
That's right. I would choose to be alive, right? But if okay, that's the that's the answer, right? If I knew I'd come back, then I'd pick the blip. If I didn't know I'd come back, I'd pick being alive.
Yeah, I think I would pick staying in the sort of post-apocalyptic Mad Max world for the 5 years, and because it wasn't that bad, it was just a bit sad. But you could do a bit of looting and stuff along the way before it gets before everyone like hides in their house and do some crazy stuff.
But imagine, Adrian, like how many of your Kickstarters won't arrive? Like, do you want to live in that world?
Yeah, true. This is very sad.
Yeah, but some of them would. Some of them would arrive. If you weren't around, you wouldn't.
Well, funnily enough, if you blipped out and then came back 5 years later, maybe Cthulhu Wars would have delivered by then.
Yeah, there you go. You might get that back.
Yeah,
you know,
all the Kickstarter backlog will be in by then.
You might even like get some Kickstarters from people that didn't come back. Like if you knew that your neighbor was into board games and they were going to get Kickstarters and they weren't around anymore, you could.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
think about the potential profit.
Yeah, think about that.
I'd forward all your Kickstarters to my house, Sarah, and I'd be getting all these Kickstarters and be like, this is awesome. I didn't even pay for these.
Yeah.
I'm still getting these Kickstarters. Yeah, that was the question for the guys, because I knew they were both Marvel fans and were interested.
Well,
in
I failed dismally because I was like, I didn't know it was the blip. I didn't know that was what you cool Marvel people called it. I've seen it in games and I still didn't know that it
Oh, well, I was stoked that Adam picked up on it. That was awesome.
Yeah, they did. They saved that for me. It was good.
Yeah. And I also, like, while I'm kind of on some other random subject, I often don't give like massive shout outs to our actual podcast members, but I just want to say a massive thanks to Jules helping me paint some of my first minis and going through that on the Discord the other day and helping me with some actual like not strategies, but I suppose strategies, techniques, like on how to paint minis, because I'm not very good, like at all. I'm still not very good. But the little like hour and a half that he showed me some things, it made a massive difference.
Yeah,
like humongous.
It really does. Even watching like a 20-minute tutorial on the thing that you're painting or something similar to the thing you want to paint, it can make a huge difference, because if you're just coming in cold and you haven't really done art before and you haven't painted much before, you really just, you don't have those, like the knowledge. It takes knowledge as well as theory as well as the creativity. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, when he was telling me,
so good.
He's telling me about different pigments and codes and stuff, and I was like, wow, you do know your stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. I just go red. Put red on.
I want everything red.
Yeah.
That was me when I was a teenager. I was a 14-year-old boy who really wanted a Tau Warhammer 40k army because I thought they looked cool. And I brought them home and I thought, these are going to look awesome, just like in the pictures. And they were blue, and that was pretty much it. But then later on, as an adult, I picked up Mythic Battles Pantheon, and I thought, you know what, these are big enough. Like, they're quite chunky minis. They're big enough that even my imprecise hands will be able to paint them. And, you know, after watching just a couple of techniques, like using washes, base coats, you know, dry brushing and all of that, you can really make them pop. Like, I don't think I'm an excellent painter, but I look at those minis and I'm like, they're not bad. You know, they're pretty good.
You can do a good wash. Like, you can learn to do that really easily.
Yeah,
even a
really
dry brush,
easily.
a bit of dry brush is really easy to learn.
Do you have a lamp? Do you guys have a lamp for painting? Out of interest, like a lamp, you know, for light.
Even I don't have a lamp, a proper lamp.
I have one, but I don't use it. Honestly,
I have a lamp, right? And I set myself up in a good posture, and then I just all of a sudden end up like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and all of a sudden I'm like leaning forward, crouched over my desk, looking at this thing like I'm about to eat it like a secret chocolate.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, I don't understand that. Like, it happens every time. I get really good posture, then I start, then all of a sudden I get really into it, and then all of a sudden I'm leaning right over myself and I'm all
You
crunched
get in
up.
weird positions too, like because
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, this position right here like helps me get the detail, and then you're like in some like weird,
Yeah, just
like,
completely
yeah.
contorted, right?
Completely contorted, and you've been there for like 2 hours, and then the next day you can't move.
But
Yeah.
Jules assures me there's a bunch of memes and different things about that, so it is a thing because he
It's
was
a thing.
laughing at me for it.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely a thing. I think
But
that's
yeah.
why I haven't done the lamp thing, because I know that I'll end up cramped underneath the lamp.
Yeah,
and I'll be
it's
blocking
crazy.
the light anyway. Anyway, all right. So I think we should talk about your games, guys. The games that you're designing. Please tell us. I guess we've been going like Kenny Lee. So let's start with you then, Kenny. Tell us about Scrap.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll
I mean, I
see what
know about Scrap.
Yeah. I know.
But tell everyone else about Scrap.
Sure thing. So I'll start with the theme as I usually do. So in Scrap, you're playing a group of robots known as an intelligence. What's happened is a mysterious substance known as ether, aka space magic, has just spread throughout the galaxy and caused all sorts of things to happen. For robots, that meant that they developed cognition. Cognition's pretty great. Thinking's pretty awesome. And so you've flown to the planet where you think the ether originated to learn more about it. But of course, every other robot in the galaxy also wants to learn about this ether. And so you're trying to race to master it effectively and learn as much as you can about it before any other robot can.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanically speaking, what Scrap is I often call it, it's an asymmetric area control game that's driven by programming and hand management. It's got so many influences. So it started as a kind of like a clone of Blood Rage, actually, because at the time it was my favorite game. But since then, like if I had to compare it to a game now, what game is it closest to?
You wouldn't compare it to Blood Rage now, really, would you?
No, not at all. Not at all. There's like one mechanism in the game that if you know Blood Rage, it helps you understand the mechanism, but that's at best 2% of the game. If I had to compare it to a game now, as far as just kind of what it feels like, potentially even Spirit Island, honestly, because you're playing an asymmetric faction, you've got an asymmetric hand of cards. It's fairly meaty and complex. The key thing is it's just not cooperative, right? So you're playing against other people, but it is, not to try and make it sound all fancy or anything, but I do think it's a fairly unique experience.
I think at some stage it starts to take on a life of its own, and that's probably what you've found. And it's got its origins, but who can trace that back other than the designer?
Absolutely. Like if I had to, I can point to some games that have some mechanisms that inspired it. So Mage Knight was a big one with the kind of colored powering up. That was where that mechanism came from. Spirit Island a little bit as well, with that similar kind of element matching.
Well, in Spirit Island, you do have, like, you play 2 cards, right? You sort of play like a fast and a slow or something.
Yeah, it depends on the spirit you're playing. Like
right.
You slowly develop more and all of that. But it has that similar trajectory as Spirit Island, right? Where every turn you get a little bit more powerful. You slowly develop a hand of cards. Like that, there is definitely some similarities with Spirit Island.
And there are tracks.
Yeah, there are tracks, right? There are definitely tracks. There are more tracks in Scrap.
More tracks in Scrap, yeah.
But and then on top of that, it's got the hand management of Concordia somewhat, which I hadn't actually played before I played Scrap. But every time I demoed it to someone, they were like, "This is like Concordia," and so I went and tried it, and I was like, "Yeah, you're not wrong. It is kind of similar to Concordia." And probably the big secret, right, and the big driving force of Scrap is the programming. Right, and that's kind of the hallmark feature of the game. And really the inspiration for that comes from Star Wars Armada, actually. Which is, I remember playing that for the first time. And have any of you played Star Wars Armada?
I have not. I was an X-Wing fan. Played X-Wing.
X-Wing's great. I think X-Wing's great for kind of like almost a filler-ish game. Like it's good, right? I'm not.
How dare you? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I played X-Wing competitively for a while, so I think it's great.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, it's fairly quick, right? The decisions are kind of more just mind gamey, right? It's trying to guess, where are they going? Are they going straight? Are they going to the side? What are they doing? It's good.
Yeah, I mean, they did like small armies on purpose so that it only lasted 45 minutes or whatever. So yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly. Armada is more like your board game experience, if you know what I mean. It's a much longer game. Like they generally go 2.5 to 3 hours. But the primary driving mechanism in that was sending commands to your ships. And it was this cool thing because if you had large Imperial Star Destroyers, you'd basically have to program multiple commands in advance. Whereas if you had a smaller ship like a Tantive or something like that, it'd only be one command. So the smaller ships were faster and more. That's right. The crews are smaller, and so it wasn't as logistically complex. And I just thought that mechanism was great. And so I don't think any other game that I know of has done it, or not one that I've played. For me, the inspiration is Star Wars Armada. But that's kind of what Scrap's all about, really. Just programming and sequencing your cards right. And managing a hand in a very effective way.
I love how well that fits the programming with the setting of the box. Like it just seemed to go together.
One thing I really try and do in my designs, and I did something recently as well, is I try and make sure there's really good thematic mechanic integration. One of the things I really dislike in games is when something really sticks out to me as a mechanic. And by that, I mean, as an example, I was reading a rulebook for a game today, which I won't mention because I don't think I was very enthused by it. But I loved the theme of this game. I thought it was really cool. But when I read through all of the mechanics for the game and the rulebook, nothing clicked. Everything was very gamey. And that's fine. I'm sure that mechanically the game was okay. But what I really always look for is something to make the mechanics more grokkable and also make it feel like I'm actually buying into an experience. If I'm playing a set of mechanics with a theme, it's fine. I can do that. But it doesn't make me love the game. And so what I've tried to do with every mechanic in Scrap is make sure it tells a part of the narrative. As a quick example, one of the key things in the game is you're gathering data, or basically data is victory points, right? You're trying to race up to 50 at the moment. And so in a lot of games, you've got many, many different ways to get victory points. You kind of do anything, right? You build a building, you move up a track, you do a quest or whatever.
Point salad-y games.
Yeah, you get point salads, right? And Scrap does have points that you can get from a few different areas. But whenever I add something into the game, even if it's for a balance reason, like recently I added in data on move because a lot of people felt like move was a low value action. So I added some data onto it. But before I did that, I had to explain to myself, does this make thematic sense? What is my explanation for it? And the explanation is, well, your bots are moving around the planet, and as they're moving around, they do explore and see other things.
Yeah,
so naturally,
find something interesting on the way.
Right, exactly.
Scanning the terrain or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So the key thing was that there had to be a good and reasonable thematic reason for that to be included. And another thing recently was that I added an extra data point to Ether. So the little purple energy that you can use, because the game's about learning to master Ether, I felt like thematically, not mechanically, but thematically, it would make sense that if your robots were using the Ether, they should get victory points. And so I didn't add that because I thought it was a balance problem. I added it because it told the story better.
Yeah. That makes sense. So Leigh, what about...
Before we move on to Leigh, actually, there's one little thing that I did notice you did the other day. You changed the shape of your terrain tiles,
I
Kenny.
did, yeah.
Why?
Did you love the old shape?
No, I don't mind either way. I'm just interested if it's like a production thing. It's easier to produce them, or if it's...
It's a good question. So I guess it's harder to do over a podcast, but I'll try and describe it. So I had... Part of my design of Scrap was I wanted to make the tiles stand out, right? Inish was the inspiration for that. Inish has weird tiles, if you've ever seen it, but they're fairly iconic, right? When people talk about Inish, they bring up the fact that A, it has massive tarot-sized cards, and B, the tiles are weird, right? And so I didn't want Scrap to be another hex tile game. I don't have anything against hex tile games, but they definitely blend together a little bit. And so I wanted something to make it stand out. And so I played around for a while with different shapes in PowerPoint, and I came across a shape that I affectionately refer to as the Batarang, because it looks like a Batarang, basically.
Yeah.
Creative naming, I know. But anyway, I used those tiles for a long time, and I really enjoyed them. But there were some light practical problems with them. One of them was that it didn't showcase the art very well because of the way the tile was divided. Because the tile was divided almost into like a cross, it meant that the art wasn't showcased as well. And the other thing was that it caused not a mechanical problem, but just a potential confusion with the way certain tiles lined up. And so I had to change it to something. But I still wanted to maintain that same unique tile shape, something that still stood out and looked unique, but still served the function. And I think that I've achieved that. Like most people who have seen the tiles now still think they look really cool and really unique. So hopefully everyone else finds that too.
Yeah.
No, I thought they looked good.
And
they're better. I like it more that they're square because you can see more of the art for sure.
Yeah. And they also have that robotic feel because robots are
100%
kind of blocky. And...
Exactly. Once again, just trying to keep everything kind of thematically tied. And again, selling an experience, right? Not just selling a game, but selling an idea. When you play Scrap, you are going to be playing these robots, and the world you're going to be playing in is much more robotic.
Cool. So sorry, Leigh, to interrupt there, but yeah, and yourself, Leigh, your game, Grimwald. Like, we've spoken about both these games on the podcast a few times along the way, and definitely the physical prototype we all got blown away by in Sydney because we thought it was amazing. And then to find out that the art was like free art and stuff was even more mind blowing. But yeah, what tell us about Grimwald?
Yeah, I think going back to what Kenny said, the setting is so important, but so Grimwald is it's everything you love about a great dungeon crawler. I've just thrown out the dungeon and thrown out the crawling. So this is like the game for people who love Gloomhaven or Too Many Bones, but they particularly love the character development. So I wanted to sort of grab the character development, rip everything else out, and give you a game that you can actually get to the table much, much easier, and that was just a bit more accessible to new gamers as well. So in Grimwald, it's a bit of a medieval setting at the moment, but I'm really going for in my head, I'd love if it was like more of a dark fantasy type of thing. But so you play as a fantasy adventurer, and it's a competitive Euro-style game, and all about just developing your little unique character. There's no combat whatsoever. There's essentially a shared game board, and you get straight to like the good stuff, grabbing the rewards. So your character, if your character's a strong character, you'll be able to get experience points really easy and level up. If your character's particularly smart, you'll be able to get skill points and work through your tracks on your skill tree. And if you've got like a sneaky character, you'll be able to collect lots of money and go for the sets of items in the game with the set collection. So I was really just trying to get that feeling from an RPG of just the character development, but just really condense it down into a short enough experience, like distill that down into, the board game, because you can't do everything in a board game. You have to think about what's important to you as the designer. So the game sort of ends, you progress through these more and more difficult quest actions that you take. And the game sort of ends once we've grabbed all the best, royal items from the palace. And it ends in a glorious point salad of, all these different things that contribute to your character being, the hero of the story. So, yeah.
I felt that when we played it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the loot and stuff and being your own individual hero without the fighting. Like I definitely got that vibe because Connor and Sarah did something completely different to what I did. I can't remember what the attributes were that I went for. They were on the bottom of the triangle, the two bottom left and bottom right.
Yeah, that would be the brawn and wisdom. So you'd be going towards the virtuous side for your character. Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, Adrian always does like the cleric thing. It's really weird.
I think he was the priest for the cleric, wasn't he?
Yeah, he went book strategy. And tell us about the loot matching set thing.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a set collection. Like you might be trying to collect all of the items in a particular set, because just like a game like here's the inspiration, Diablo, the PC game, if you get those green items, those set items in Diablo, if you collect enough of them, then you start to add on these set bonuses. And this is one of the things from our playtest. I'm really going to crank that lever up and make that another thing that people really want to go towards, those set items. Because I'm really trying for that, like that feeling that the player gets of, I want to do everything. Like I want to do everything in the game, and they just can't. So I think that's a lot of what gets people to come back and explore different paths. And I didn't want to make it a very prescriptive, this is the strategy that you do in this game, and whoever is the most efficient wins the game. It's more of a give the players a chance to explore the game, because I think, going back to what Kenny said, it's you design the game, but once you see the game in action, you realize you're actually designing the experience, and that's a little scary as a designer, because to some extent, where can you influence the experience of the game? And that's actually where things like, that's the reason my prototype looks the way it does, because I want to test not just the game, but like there's a big, when you take a game off your shelf, that's, or when you look at a game on your shelf, like that's really where the experience starts. So you get these,
or in a shop, looking at it in a shop.
Exactly, yeah. Cover. So you bring in all this stuff with you to the game, and that actually comes out and bubbles to the surface in the experience. So I've put the hours in to, get the game, the prototype looking good, because I think that will pay off in terms of actually testing the experience.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I must say, I think I said it to you multiple times now, but it was the best looking prototype I'd ever seen. It looked like a finished game, right? So it's a testament to the effort you put in for it, which was awesome. And I agree with you as well. We talked about this a little bit. We had a bit of a design chat on Sunday, but we talked about how art can really influence the perspective of that as well. So just getting a little bit of art or a little bit of that involved or included in the experience can really help out.
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention that. I was going to mention it earlier, but me being me, I completely forgot. Kenny ran like a design channel thing on a Sunday morning, and there was like 10 people in there talking about design stuff. And yeah, massive kudos, Kenny. It was amazing. It was great. I didn't say hardly anything. I just got to listen for once, which was epic. I just muted. I was painting on my minis, like, yeah, look at me go painting minis, listening to like my own podcast.
In your contorted position.
I think he was
back on Notre Dame.
He was secretly trying to get some dirt on us, Kenny. By just
yeah, that's right.
Sneaking into that one.
I was fine.
No, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really good. Everyone had a great time. There was lots of feedback in Discord and stuff. So anyone that's interested in design and stuff, we do have a design channel on the Discord, and we have a lot of people in there chatting about design, giving each other help and tips and stuff. And yeah, it's been really good. So yeah, well done to you guys.
Is that where
Leigh
you
was
two
there
met?
as well. So
did you guys meet, like talk through that channel? No.
We met in front of you at
that day
of Scrap
at Chatswood, right?
My game day. Yeah, so Leigh has come to my game days before, and so we know each other from that. So yeah, that was cool. Okay, that's good. I just wanted to check. We have some questions.
A million community
So
questions.
many.
Like we've never had so many. It's ridiculous. So
yeah,
we'll try to get through a fair few of them, but we'll start at the top with the first person that replied. And Carl sent a message, and he said, if you could name 2 types of game that you always gravitate towards and enjoy, what would they be?
We'll start with you this time, Leigh.
Yeah, I guess
two types of games.
I guess types of games. My brain immediately thinks mechanics, so I'll take it that way. I would say like worker placement and anything with like simultaneous action. So eliminate the downtime and just everyone's got that chance to do something simultaneous. So those are the games I gravitate towards. And it probably comes out a little in Grimwald, where I've really tried to include everyone's in town grabbing all the goodies all at once in the simultaneous play.
Yeah, but you know what I was going to say about Grimwald, which I thought was really cool, is that there's a difference in whether you come first. Like obviously it's good to go first because you get the spot that you want, but in Grimwald there's like benefits if you come later, which is kind of similar to Dungeon Lords, which I thought was really cool because I like that
Yeah,
sort of-
thank Kenny, because he's one of the guys that had play tested it a couple of times, and it's
Okay.
from feedback from other people that the best ideas come from other people as a designer.
That's what's good about playtesting, I guess.
Yeah, Vital says that all the time about us. Hey, Sarah.
Does he? Yeah, no.
What was that about? What was it? Not about Vital, but what was that about the robots, Adrian? Was it the junk robots?
I can't remember.
Junk robots.
In
DOS, right?
Oh, in DOS, yeah. Just like I basically in a game called DOS, Dynamic Operations
Dynamic
Systems?
Object Solutions by
Yeah, there
Julian
you go.
Combo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't advance any of my tech, so I was building the cheapest, nastiest robots that would only last 6 months and basically break, but I was making loads of them. So I just called them crapbots. They were crapbots.
Yeah.
And they did their job. I didn't win, but there's nothing unusual there. So
You'll be the
You
number
were-
one playtester listed on the box.
yeah,
They were basically Roombas with legs. That's all they did.
yeah.
Cleaning.
And then there's actually a second part to that question. It says, which of the barbecuers did you find most physically imposing and then most mentally imposing?
Wait. Casey hasn't answered the first bit yet. He hasn't answered the first bit.
That's all good. So I would say that the games I gravitate towards were definitely like high interaction and area control, right? So I love those style of games. The other one I would say is it's a bit of a broad category, but games with hand management as a primary mechanism. When I have to kind of look at my hand and consider the options tactically all the time. So games like Twilight Struggle, as an example, where hand management is like 80% of the game. And then even Mage Knight, where just sequencing your hand as well is really important and deciding what to use when and what to hold for the next turn. I think those games I find really enjoyable. And I think that comes across in the design for Scrap as well.
For sure.
And as far as physically imposing and mentally imposing.
This is so funny.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, who is the most physically imposing?
Well, I don't know, but I saw a bit of a display earlier with Sarah attacking a wasp.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I did
Has
have
she
to
got-
destroy a wasp. That was kind of scary.
Connor's tall.
Connor is very
He
tall.
is.
Yeah, he's very tall.
He's quite physically imposing. I would say he's.
But he's lovable, like
Oh,
Harry and the Hendersons. You know, like I'd say, if I had to pick, I'd say Mitch.
Yeah, I was
'Cause
gonna say Mitch from the game days. I'm like,
yeah,
Mitch is in the room.
Yeah, I think it's the voice as well, right? It's the voice of command. That's what really makes him imposing.
yeah. And then most
random.
mentally imposing. I guess if I had to pick one, it would be Deaf because he's a brain contortionist, right, Sarah? So
Yeah.
that's my pick. But yeah, you guys like mentally imposing.
Who is the most mentally imposing? I was going to say again, Mitch, that voice, right? It just does mental things to me. It just makes me want to listen. Makes me want to listen and obey.
Yeah.
Listen and obey.
Yeah.
Then we should have had him on the podcast with you guys. Then.
It would have just been me going, yes, sir.
Cool. Well, we also have a question here from Jonathan. Jonathan asks, I know you both have Facebook pages or design diaries /blogs to help you express your thoughts. So what has been the coolest and most useful feedback from those platforms, basically?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I don't know if it's so much feedback per se, but probably the most useful thing I found with things like Facebook pages or design diaries is that I guess the feedback is just authentic engagement, right? Like just seeing people, even without your prompting, sometimes I help to facilitate the discussions, but there are definitely times where it's spontaneous or everything, and that on its own is great feedback. Just seeing people wanting to talk about the game or wanting to play it and just commenting on different things about the game, even when you're not there, it's a great feeling. I had someone message me today and say that after they play tested the game recently, this was just on Facebook, not necessarily the Facebook page, but just saying that they hadn't stopped thinking about the game for 4 hours. So I guess really it's just having a public facing forum allows for more avenues for that discussion to happen. And that feedback really helps you keep going sometimes.
Yeah. I guess in terms of like writing blogs, I feel like that has just been more of a self-serving thing. Like you don't necessarily write a blog to get out there, and it's probably not the best publicity tool, but it really helps you talk about the game and document your approach. So that's just helped me actually engage with people about the game Grimwald.
Just getting your thoughts together, you mean, and then being able to...
Exactly, right. Yeah, because you actually sit down and, because it's not often you sit down and actually think about things and how it would fit on paper. It's like a lot of,
you just kind of do it. I'm sure you just kind of do things and don't think about it to that degree.
It's kind of like a reverse writer's block.
Yeah.
Like you have your thing already and you just want to write the stuff down, and you can, mechanically you don't really know, but you just want to write it down so it's well documented.
It's like you're reverse engineering your own project.
Yeah. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
So I mean, from that point of view, people can tell as well that you're really invested in what you're designing, and I think that's a big thing, is like just believing in what you're doing and showing that. So but yeah, from the Facebook group, it's just it's great to just see the natural interaction of people, not necessarily with you as the designer, but between them. That's like so far the most rewarding thing I've had from Grimwald is taking it to the Sydney game day and just walking away and letting people play the game and coming back. Like that's that feeling of the game has a life of its own. That's the most rewarding thing, I think.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome.
All right. There is some more questions. So Baba asks, if you could work with any publisher, who would it be and why?
I would work with Czech Games Edition. Just because I think that Vlada Švadl is absolutely amazing. And so I would just want to pick his brain because I feel like every genre that he touches is amazing. But yeah, Czech Games Edition just, I think, does a lot of good games. So I'd probably go with them.
Yeah, I agree with you on Vlada. He's probably my favorite.
He's a madman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say for me, and this is not for Grimwald because, not necessarily for Grimwald, but I think Garfield Games, I haven't played many of their games, honestly, but I've just listened to so much of, Sam McDonald and Shem Phillips when they've been on this podcast and others, and just hearing how they do things is just this crazy internal playtesting and crazy ideas. And I think that would just be so much fun because they from their process, it just sounds like they do so much internal and get really, really creative early in the process.
I would like to give a shout out as well to Level 99 Games, where they're probably my second choice because I think they make a lot of interesting, asymmetric, and very ambitious games. And so I think working with them would be a hoot too, just because the possibilities with them are pretty crazy.
Cool. Well, we have a question here as well from Ben. He said, what resource has helped you the most when learning about Kickstarter and the crowdfunding process? So that's mainly probably towards Kenny.
Yeah. So, there's quite a few resources I've had to make use of. Well, so Kickstarter and crowdfunding itself, so there's the Board Game Design Lab Facebook group, which I found quite helpful. They have a newsletter as well, which I subscribe to, and that's probably the thing I most frequently view. So there's I get an email every couple of days, I feel like, with a couple different resources talking about a bunch of different things. So I guess it's more of a hub, if that makes sense. It itself is not a resource, just in the same way that Google is not a resource. But at the same time, I find it is a great place where information tends to amalgamate. So yeah, that I think has been individually the most helpful. But apart from that, Jamie Stegmeier's blogs, as I think a lot of people have said, are quite helpful. They're quite detailed, and he's got a great writing style as well, which makes it really accessible and easy. And it comes across as quite honest. Yeah. So those would be my recommendations if you're looking into something like that.
Okay, Lisa had a question, and that was, is there a game that you played way back when? And I know you guys have both been playing games for a really long time. So is there one that you played a long, long time ago, maybe even when you were a kid, that still holds a soft spot, that you still play, that you still love? Kenny.
Yeah, so I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently, and I was talking to one of my friends about it today. But Steve Jackson's Illuminati is one that I want to see it revived, basically. Because I was saying it's probably a little bit outdated now. I'm sure that I mean, I would sit down and happily play it. But I know it would be quite a long game, and I wouldn't necessarily expect to win off of my strategic merits. But man, that game does so many interesting things. And I remember
For someone who's never played it, can you just give us the one sentence pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. So Illuminati is a game where you're playing a secret society. They're all asymmetric, and you're basically trying to acquire power. They do have asymmetric win conditions as well. One of the key things in the game is that it is heaps of negotiation. So you're constantly asking people for support to take over things or support to stop people from taking over things. And probably the coolest mechanism in the game is that while you are a secret society, you've got your kind of faction face down, so no one knows exactly what you're going for. And while your faction is face down, you can actually lie about some of your stats. And so you can try and trick people about what your stats are. There are limitations as to how much you can lie, but it's just a really interesting game. And I would love to see a game, and I've thought about this, about making a game that brings back those secret societies and does cool stuff with them. So, Illuminati.
Sounds interesting. What about you, Leigh?
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a bit, and I'll go with a game that I don't necessarily play to this day, but it's stayed with me, and it's such a large part of what I think about with games, and it's Dungeons and Dragons. So I started joining my brother's games of Dungeons and Dragons when I was probably about 10 years old or so. And I would just even when we weren't playing, I'd just read through the manuals, and I think we used to borrow Dragon magazine or this sort of thing from the library, and go through those. And recently I read a book about the history of game development from chess all the way through Dungeons and Dragons, and it's even if it's not one that I play today, it's such a huge thing, and it's still with me in how I think about games, for sure.
Nice.
Okay, we'll ask just one last question here. Def actually asked, which game or games have influenced your game design process most, and what part influenced your process? Go for it, Leigh. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say, my game's inspired by Diablo, the PC game, but I'm not going to say that. What actually has been really influential is Wingspan. And it's not necessarily because of the game, it's because of the game designer, Elizabeth Hargrave, and just her drive for accessibility in games is just insane. You can see it in sort of every part of the game of Wingspan. So often when I'm in a rut, in a game design problem, and I'll be what would Wingspan do? Thinking about that design philosophy of just not giving an inch on accessibility and making sure anyone can play your game. So I'd say and she's just she's a great person in the design community. She really pushes for diversity and inclusiveness in game design. Check out her personal website. She's got a list of women, non-binary designers, Black voices in game design. She's just recently made a geek list on Board Game Geek, and it's a list of female designed games in the top 500 or have won particular awards. So it's a great spot to get game recommendations, and because really in game design, the whole process, it's through from designer to publisher to the people playing the games, it's male dominated, and if that's the case for designers and publishers, then it's going to be the case for the players, and it's a cycle that will continue. So Elizabeth Hargrave is just a huge inspiration in terms of a designer and her game or games. She's made more than one.
For me, the game that probably had the biggest influence on my design process was Cthulhu Wars. It's a game I've played, in 2021? Where was it? No, 2020. I probably played it around 160 times online. It's one of my most played board games ever. And I was kind of part of some development at some point as well, and just working on a lot of homebrews with a lot of the people and going through the process of what breaks the design of an area control game. What do we need to consider, like the 3-player problem and engines versus interactive factions and why certain things are good in the game. That had a really big influence on me. In addition to that, not only the process of just going through developing homebrew stuff for it, but even just some basic concepts like in Cthulhu Wars. Has anyone here played it? Adrian, I think you've played it, right?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. I played it twice, and I actually really liked playing the one that raised like the undead at the zombies.
Yeah, Yellow Sign. They're great fun.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things in Cthulhu Wars is it's got a lot of negotiation mechanisms that are kind of emergent from the game. And so a lot of abilities in the game work around the fact that players are going to understand the game and negotiate things around that. So I just think that it allows for a lot of really interesting dynamics, which not all games allow for. So Cthulhu Wars is what I would pick.
Okay, we have one more question. It's for JB. And I feel like this is more of an attack on Adrian and I than it is a question for you guys.
It's a personal
It's
attack.
a personal
literally.
attack. I'm going to take it that way. So he asked, do you guys know what a quacker is? That's the question. Which is like, it's clearly an attack.
I hope one of you doesn't, so you can join our side.
I know. I unfortunately
know what a cocker is. Yeah.
I unfortunately do know what a quacker is.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, JB. Congratulations. You've made Adrian and I feel bad again for not knowing what a quacker is. I know what a quacker is now.
I understood that reference too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, JB. We really appreciate those. Obviously. So.
Hey everybody, Sarah here. I just want to talk for a moment about one of our sponsors, Advent Games. So Advent Games are the company that I buy my board games with. Dean and the team are amazing. Their website is adventgames.com.au. They are Australian based. You can actually get games from Dean from his game group on Tuesday nights if you're in Sydney, so you don't have to pay for shipping. Otherwise, around Australia, the shipping is $10 flat rate. Advent Games help us with our Sydney game days, which is amazing. They provide games for our library and they have a pop-up store. They have an amazing website with loads of games. Their stock is extensive, and they also have everything organized into categories, so you can look straight for Euro heavyweight games, or you can look for family games, you can go straight to solo, whatever you want, it's there. And Dean also has a lot of pre-order items, which is really good as well, so you can make sure that you get the game that you're hanging for and reserve it. So that's Advent Games. I highly recommend them, and thank you, Advent, for supporting the podcast.
We are going to talk a little bit about the Board Game BBQ awards themselves, which are actually coming around very shortly. And this is just a sort of brief discussion on some of the kind of categories that are coming up. We've been given 3 to talk about, guys, that we can talk about today. The best solo game of 2021, the best family game of 2021, and the guest of games, and the best party game of 2021. Now, I know that Kenny plays quite a bit of solo, right, Kenny?
I do.
I might just don't make that up.
I play all kinds of solo, like true solo, multi-handed solo with games that aren't supposed to be solo.
So I've heard a lot of people say that Ark Nova is a great solo. So would you say it was the best solo of last year, or do you think there might be something better?
Is it the best solo of last year? Well, now I can't comprehensively say because I haven't gone through and played every solo game from last year, but I will say it is a damn good solo game. And part of it as well is just my realization of how the multiplayer works, where it's really a game that's a race, right? Yeah. And that's what the solo game gets you to do. It's just a race against time. And I find that when I normally play on I think they call it the hard difficulty, not the extreme. It's the one where you start at 10 appeal. But I always find that comes down to the last turn or two. So literally the last action or two I take in the game is where I win or lose. And so I do think if you bought Ark Nova and didn't have many gamers around you, just as a solo game, it is a fantastic solo game.
Well, there you go. I don't know many others, but I can list some of them off. With the Messina is in there, 1347. Lost Ruins of Arnek with the expansion. Mercado de Lisboa is even in there.
I have played that solo, and can I?
Have you?
Yes, I have. It's really good. It's got it's got different challenges, and I spoke to Julian about this because challenge 1 is particularly difficult. It requires a little bit of game state being a certain way, so that you can actually complete that, because basically you can only get money. You can only money is points. You can only get money on one particular good, right? And so a few times I played this and I was trying to get money on tomatoes, for example. Like I was opening pizza stalls or whatever, so I was going for tomatoes, and of course that's randomized. What stalls come out is randomized. So there is a little bit of luck involved in some of those challenges. So it's a bit of a baptism of fire. A lot of people say that Gloomhaven, the first scenario, is really hard. It's like that.
It is really hard.
Yeah, it's like that. So Mercado de Lisboa, the first challenge is really hard. And when I spoke to Julian, he was like, you don't have to do them in order. You don't really have to do them in order. You can just do whatever challenges you want. So yeah, it is a fun experience. I like this whole idea of like different challenges in a solo mode. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like you have more than one solo game.
It's almost like a campaign, if you know what I mean. Like I suppose that's why you start at the start and refuse to leave until you complete the first one.
Yeah, I can't do that.
It feels like you're a failure if you move on, right?
That's right. And there is
Yeah.
No, you go, Sarah. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say there is like a bit of a system too. It's like you get I can't remember what they call it. It's not prestige points, but it's something of the sort. And so if you win by a lot or whatever, you get 1 prestige point, and then you do the next scenario, and if you excel at that, you also get more. So it's that sort of like travels along the campaign. And so at the end, when you've done all of the scenarios, you can say, hey, look, I got this amazing score or whatever. So that carries on. So it's cool. I really did like it. And I'm not an expert at solo games, but I really did enjoy that with Mercado de Lisboa. Of course, it's fantastic when you play with other people because it's such a mean game, but they really worked hard. And Julian is like very good at designing solo modes. He does that. That's a thing that he is very experienced with. He's designed solo modes for Viticulture, so he knows what he's doing, and that shows through, I think. Sorry, Kenny, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, I was going to say springboarding off of that, just general, not milestones, but the awards idea or the particular achievements you're trying to go for. It was not a solo game, but Canvas, which I recently acquired the Reflections version of. I haven't actually played it yet, but I remember looking through the rulebook and seeing at the end, it just had a bunch of achievements of things, mark when you have met this achievement in a game. And I just thought that was really cool. Just like some extra things to be able to just, you don't have to, you can just completely ignore them. But they're a nice thing to have there for someone who may not be as competitive a gamer, and just have them go, can I, in this game, make a painting that has all of these things? Like, it's a cool idea. I know that's not quite exactly the same as what...
Well, it's a solo. You can play Canvas solo.
Yeah.
And it also branches over into the family games category as well. So it's got a diverse audience, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, there's also a few others. So there's in the solo gaming, there's Sleeping Gods. You've got Oath, Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, Cascadia is solo, Red Rising, Bitoku, Hadrian's Wall. There's quite a lot. There's one that was actually quite surprising to see in there, and that was Gloomholden. Have you guys heard of Gloomholden
I
or
have
seen it? So it's a print and play, Lee, of Gloomhaven that you can play, I think, with like 52 cards that are printed out.
I thought it was only like 18 cards or something. Is it?
I don't know. I think it's a fair amount.
Okay, my bad.
I don't think it's maybe it is 18. I'm thinking something else, but essentially you hold the cards over the top of each other to cover parts of other cards, and then that becomes the game. And apparently it's pretty good. I've never played it, but it's a print and play, so that's quite impressive.
It got a lot of hype when it was when the person had designed it and put it out there. It got a lot of positive reviews. So
yeah. And then sort of the next one after that, after Best Solo Game, is the Best Family Game of 2021. Now, Mercado de Lisboa is in there. And, you know, I've actually played a few family weight games on this list, and I prefer Mercado de Lisboa to Cascadia, but that's just me. Now, everybody loves Cascadia and thinks it's amazing, and it is a great game. I'm not saying it isn't. It's just for me, I preferred Mercado. I don't know why.
I mean, if
just
I'm
enjoyed
thinking
it.
strictly from the categories perspective, I feel like Cascadia is probably more family friendly. Just because I find Mercado Lisboa is just, it's so mean. Like, it can be so mean, or at least that's the way
It's
I
tight.
play it. I always try and finish it whenever everyone else is high and dry, and they haven't got what they, you know, they haven't got their head around it yet. They don't know what they're doing. So I don't know. Like, for kids, like when I think family game, I think kids are going to play as well. I feel like Cascadia is perfect for, you know, every age group.
You know, it is an interesting thing because I've heard this argument before where people talk about take that and all of that. And, you know, fairly aggressive mechanics may not be the best for newer gamers. But a lot of games that I guess people who are only into mainstream games play have heavy take that elements, like Monopoly does, Uno does. Like, who doesn't love slapping Wild Draw 4, right? And that's like the most take that element there is. And so I know it's probably it's not take that in Mercado de Lisboa.
It's not really take that. I think it has like a complexity in the way that you can set up for others to fail that is a little bit more involved than take that. And so therefore I don't think kids can put a draw 4 on you pretty easily. You know what I mean? But
they will.
And they will.
Oh,
they
will.
will. Like,
they will.
Exactly. But I think it's a little different in this.
Yeah.
But that's
I don't know if it's in the mix, but talking about kids grabbing games and being into them, I heard Dan describe his kid go and pick up Land vs. Sea, and just, you know, bring out the tiles because, you know, the way they look, and playing that with his kid. Maybe there's another category though that it fits into well.
I think that's a great one for families. I really do. I have played that with my son, and really enjoyed it. He likes all the little pictures on the tiles.
And it is it's Oceania Month, so that one's
it is
great Australian game as well, Jean-Paul Jacques, the designer.
That's it.
Yeah, Australian game, Australian published, you know, the whole gamut. So yes, that's a good one.
In a similar vein to that kind of tile placement games, Overboss was actually one that surprised me. I saw it on the list, and it was one I'd played some time ago. I wasn't a huge fan of Boss Monster, and Overboss is from, I think it's the same company at least. It's the same theme. It's just in a bit of a different spin. But I quite enjoyed it when I played it. It's definitely family weight, but there's enough going on that there's some good decisions for people who are a little bit more invested too. But I think the theme is charming. I really considered putting it on my shelf, and my shelf space is fairly tight. So
it's because you've got all that toilet paper.
That's right. Yeah, that too.
Kenny's a COVID hoarder. We discovered that earlier.
He's actually not.
It's only one. It's only one packet.
Really creative materials.
Yeah. It's always on display for everyone in my work meetings too.
It's for your ideas. It's for your board game ideas. You just write.
I scribble it on.
Yeah, not on a napkin. That's on toilet paper.
Some of the other family games are The Crew, Mission Deep Sea. Now, I haven't played any of that.
Oh, wow.
The Crew was in my top 10 for a bit, but I have to say it's not in there anymore, and I would put Niet in there above it, in the fact that even though that I like The Crew for it being cooperative, I just absolutely loved my experience of playing Niet. But the new Crew, I haven't played it. Has anyone else here played it, the new one?
No.
I have. Yes.
What did you think of it?
It's good. It's really good. Yeah. So it's and we have talked about it on the show before, so I won't go into too much depth. Yeah. But it is very different. Like the missions that you get are very different. You know, like I'm playing one right now. I'm playing on BGA at the moment, and I have to do all of the missions. Sorry. So I can't win any 1s. I can't win any 5s. And I have to win the first and last trick or something. And it's kind of random. This is a lot more randomized. So instead of like in the first Crew, you have mission 1, you have to do this, and it's very structured. In this, there's a lot more random elements. So it's like, okay, you know, in this one, the captain gets to decide it gets to ask who wants to do all 3 missions, and someone has to do all 3 missions. But the missions themselves are random. So you draw 3 missions. In some cases, it might be impossible to do. And you can say, these are impossible. These don't work together, right? So, for example, if you can't win any 5s and you have to win the first 5. For example, if you had that, then obviously you can't do that. So sometimes they are incompatible, and so then you redraw. But the randomness really makes it like if you fail, for example, then you have 3 more cards potentially, and so it doesn't get dull. I don't know if you played it, but like the first one, you could get stuck on a mission 10 times, 11 times, and then you're like, okay, I'm overdoing this thing. I'm sick of this thing. Yeah, so the new one doesn't have that. And some of the combos just because it's randomized, some of the combos are just super interesting, and it's like, oh, this is a weird one.
Were you about to say combos with like a deep South American accent then? I thought you were going to say cambos. Lay down in the cambos.
I don't think that's a thing.
I don't think so.
My voice did do something weird. I don't know what it was. But
that waspy stung you. The wasp stung you, and now you're losing it.
Oh my god, it's not on. Oh my god, it's not where I killed it. It's not dead. Oh no, seriously.
It's the hallucinogen it injected you with. You can't see it anymore.
No, it's seriously.
Maybe there's no wasp all along.
There was never a wasp.
Stop. Anyway, the crew 2 is really good.
Cool. There you go. And we also have the party games as well. Now, I've played a couple of party games last year which weren't from 2021. I haven't played So Clover yet, Bristol 1350, haven't played Galaxy Trucker, but I have played
Galaxy
Hughes
Trucker is one of the party games?
It's on there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really tough.
I haven't I can't see Hughes and Clues on here, but I played that, and I'm pretty sure that was from last year.
No, that was the year before, I believe, Adrian.
Was it? Oh, wow, that's probably why. I loved that.
I was going to say, it probably all blends together a little because of COVID and everything, like with delays and all of that. It's hard to remember what came out when. But
and obviously,
it was a year before.
In Australia as well, it's very hard because we tend to get it in a random place. Like it comes out in 2020, and then we get it halfway through 2021.
Exactly.
And then it's like a year late anyway. But
it's like we need more Australian game designers and publishers, I think.
Right?
That's right.
We're on our way.
Exactly.
I did play So Clover the other day, as it turns out. And I thought it was great. It kind of scratches a slightly different itch to just one, but it's definitely the type of game that you can play out with the same group, where even if you're playing with people who aren't gamers or anything like that, it's a really fun and unique puzzle. It's a fun gimmick, right? Obviously, it's a pun. You play it on a clover, which is not particularly necessary, but it's good. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. Like a lot of those word games, right? You just get some where you get it immediately, and other times you sit in there stumped for 5 minutes. So it gives you that good semantic crunch.
Yeah, it would be hard though, because I think that with just one, that's more accessible because younger kids and stuff can play it, whereas So Clover, you kind of have to be a little bit on the same wavelength to be able to play it.
It's more akin to Codenames, right? Codenames is a little trickier for younger kids as well, especially being
we know that
like
if the thing is like, I don't know, trying to think of something obvious. If it's fish, if it comes up as fish, and then the immediate thing you think is like chips, for just one, Finn screams out 15 times while he's writing his answer down, I'm going obvious, everyone okay? Like, because he doesn't want anyone else to write chips or something that's really obviously the opposite of the thing. So that's kind of funny in itself.
He understands kind of game theory, I think, because that's making a threat to the other players. I'm doing this. I'm not.
Yeah. It's his own meta. He's like, I'm doing the obvious one, and then he does something completely different. He writes grass, and you're like, why did you put fish and grass? He's like, I don't know, because grass, and you're like, what? But yeah, he's I just think that it's I think you've got to be. I think that's why it's more of a party game than say a family game, because you just got to have that same,
definitely
level of understanding for inside. Not jokes, but inside information, I suppose, would be the word.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So Sarah, do you know any other party games from this year? Like, I mean, it's really hard because of COVID all over again. Like, it's been incredibly hard to play some of these games. You know?
I don't think I've played a single party game like for a year, but I did hear about Dream Crush, which I thought sounded really fun because it was like a parody on like current, dating habits. So it's like the Tinder and all this stuff, and it looked funny. Like it looked quite ridiculous. I don't know. Did anyone have a chance to play that one? No. Oh, okay.
I've never heard
I just
of it.
saw it on Instagram and things like that. I'm not even sure if it managed to find its way to Australia or not, but I did want to give that one a go when it finally comes here.
Cool. Well, that's a brief look at some of these games. So what you can do is the nominations are now open. You can nominate for your favorite game from 2021 in the 9 different categories. We've got Best Solo, Best Family Game, Best Party Game, Best Light Game, Medium Weight Game, Heavy Game, and then Best Expansion, Best Artwork, and then we also have Game of the Year. You can find the link to the nomination form on our socials, including Discord, Twitter, and Instagram. And on our Disc community, nominations are open to anyone in the community for 3 weeks. Facebook, Discord, and Twitter, you can nominate in the 9 categories or just the one. So it's up to you.
This is our Oscars, people. This is super exciting for us.
The nominations close on the 27th, Sunday the 27th, and we will take the most nominated game in each category, and that will become an official nominee for the Board Game Barbecue Awards. And then from there, all of those games will then be sent to our Patreons, and then they anonymously will vote for each one, and then it goes through, and then we get the winners from that. So we don't know who voted for what, but it becomes really interesting at the end when we start to get some of those votes through. So cool. Well, that's the Board Game Barbecue Awards. Thanks very much for having a chat with us about those, guys. That's really appreciated. I think we will now move on to the board game bracket.
Hi everyone, Connor here. Just want to take a sec to talk about one of our sponsors, 2D6 Games up in Brisbane. 2D6 support this podcast, and Dan, Dave and Joe are a great community-focused team who are always present at our game days. They offer free shipping Australia-wide, which is an incredible bonus. They also directly support the Brisbane Game Day, so if you're ever at a Brisbane Game Day, drop into their store and say hello.
So, we have to resolve Viticulture versus Quacks of Quedlinburg. Now, I've never played Viticulture, despite wanting to on several occasions, just never got the time. It's usually been at a game day or something like that, so I've never been able to. Have you guys got a chicken in this race? Do you know what I mean?
I'd put it in for Quacks personally. But I've got it against Viticulture a little bit with the. I'm not too keen on the cards that you're drawing.
Oh, I'm with you.
From a design point of view, I don't think that's a good idea.
Funnily enough, I played Viticulture again the other day, and I remember liking Viticulture when it first came out. Someone told me it was like 12 years ago now. Where does the time go?
Wow, really?
Yeah,
that's scary.
It was a long time ago. I mean, I don't know the exact year, but it was quite some time ago. But I totally agree. I remember at the start of the game, I played a card. We were playing a 5-player game, and the card just said each other player can choose to pay you $2. For each player that doesn't, you get a victory point. And so I played it on the first turn of the game and got 4 victory points. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't criticize it too heavily because the decision itself not to have a market of cards it's for accessibility, so you can pick up and read the cards. So it's easy for people, vision-wise, it makes it more accessible. But I'm not too sure. It's hard to give them too much of a bad rap for it, like Stonemaier games, because they made Wingspan. I'm not a big fan of that.
What I have to say in Viticulture's favor is, from a worker placement perspective, I really enjoyed it. Like when I bought it, from a worker placement perspective, I love the fact that it was like you've got to hold on to those workers for the second half of the year, because if you use them all for the first half, then you don't have any workers. That was really cool. I really like that. It reminded me a little bit of Fresco, I guess, because getting out early, but I thought that was really awesome. So the cards can be super swingy, but I think that the worker placement mechanic is super cool. And I've heard that the Tuscany expansion does sort of curb that issue. but I don't know because I haven't played it with the Tuscany expansion.
So which side of the fence are you on, Sarah?
I'm with Quacks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm with Quacks as well, but I will say it's like a very, very gentle side of the other fence. I'm really almost sitting back on it. I remember when I played Quacks for the first time, I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was an awesome game. And I remember funnily enough, I had actually played Wonderland's War first, right? And so Wonderland's War has a very Quacks-like mechanism in it, and I thought Wonderland's War was pretty cool. But when I played when I played Quacks afterwards, I thought, why would I play Wonderland's War when Quacks just kind of has that same fun mechanism but super quick? But the one thing that really bothers me about Quacks is you can just have a really bad game, right? Like,
you can. You lose horribly.
I think you understand that going in, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I understand the risk involved. Like with Viticulture, you're kind of mad at the situation because you can't change it. Whereas for Quacks, it's like, this is a bag, it's got a bunch of bad stuff in. If I pull all the bad ones out in one go, then it's just tough.
Right. Yeah, you could kind of accept the silliness more in Quacks than you would in a game like Viticulture, which I guess is ostensibly trying to be more serious. But at the same time, I feel like Quacks just goes on slightly too long for me to be okay with the level of punishment. Like it's about 45 minutes to an hour usually when I play it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you guys, you can rest assured because Quacks won by one vote.
What?
Oh, I voted. I'm claiming that.
I was right to be. I was right to be on the
counts.
fence.
There you go. And with that, we will move on and launch the next one, which are the two big T games at the moment. We have TI4 versus Targi.
I love that. The two big T games. Targi's tiny.
That big box game,
Targi you can complete in the same time as making a cup of tea. Versus something that you could eat 14 roast dinners and still not finish, basically. I've only played TI, and I think, Sarah, you've only played Targi, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm happy.
I've played both.
Who would like to go first? Oh, well, Kenny, you should just do it. We'll just sit back.
I'll fight with myself.
Yeah, battle yourself.
Sarah, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Okay. So, I mean, it kind of seems a bit strange to defend Targi over Twilight Imperium. And Twilight Imperium's a game I'm pretty sure that I will fall in love with when I eventually get the 8 hours to play it and the opportunity. And Adrian's nodding his head like, yeah, you will. But Targi is a great game, and I think it deserves to have someone defend it because it is a 2-player head-to-head game that is worker placement in a way that I haven't seen before, and you're actually placing these workers sort of on the edge of this grid, and you get to do the actions that that are in the middle of the grid as well, where your workers cross. And there can be some, rather than, you put your worker on this one thing, I can't do this thing, that's kind of annoying, I'll do it next time. You can block people in Targi so hard. You can really, really stuff up their game plan. And what you're trying to actually do is you're trying to complete a tableau. So there's tableau building in it as well. And you're trying to get them to not get the sets, because you get benefits for having in your tableau. If you get sets of 4 of the same kind of tribe cards, you get lots of points. And also there are tribe cards that have these really great unique powers, and you're trying to stop people from getting the good ones of those as well. And you want to try and get the good ones that you want for your strategy before they do. So, and also money is very, very tight in the game. So every now and then you'll see a card that actually has a money, like just has 1 coin on it. And that is just hotly contested every time. You don't want the opponent to be able to get that easily. So you'll place your workers purposely in the way so that they can't get that, that money. So it's just one of these games that as a 2-player head-to-head game, it is very strong. It's very, very strong. Thematically, okay, not super exciting. Targi are a type of tribe in African desert, and you're basically trying to collect dates and pepper, and I think salt is the other one. Okay, so this is like quite Euro-y, quite a dry theme, dry desert, dry.
You should have stopped, Sarah. Stop talking.
Yeah, stop digging.
Yeah,
Stop
it's
digging.
not. I should have stopped.
Quit while you're ahead.
Theme-wise, it's not exciting, but I want to say that it really, as a two-player head-to-head game, it really is good. It is so crunchy, and it will take you longer than it takes to have a cup of tea. Thank you, Adrian, because it really will make you think, and it will give you opportunities to like go head to head and screw up the other player, because in a two-player game you are actually going to notice what people are trying to get. You will notice what they're trying to achieve, and so that's what makes the difference. Whereas a lot of these other worker placement where there's 4 players, 5 players, you don't know what other people are doing, really. You don't know what their long-term game plan is, but in this one you do, and it is very competitive, and for that I really appreciate it. That is Targi. Play it.
Nice.
Play it. I really recommend
Please
it.
play
I
it.
honestly do. Yes, it's
very
theme,
popular,
but it's good. It's really solid.
Yeah, I think a lot of I mean, like, I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of those two-player games, head-to-head games, the theme doesn't sing through as well as the mechanics. The mechanics are what make those things, because it's almost like a game of chess. You're battling the other person. You're very right. You can see what their strategy is and what they're going for in a lot of those games, where you're like, I'm not letting you do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that you can't go there, or you can't collect that resource that you need, and I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen for you. So that's definitely a fun element.
100%. And that's why, like this game sort of, every time I play it, I think that is why you play two-player games when you're playing with 2 people. Because of this. It's designed specifically for that reason. It works so well with 2 people. You know, anyway, I'm going on too much for a bracket battle, but I really like it. I don't know anyone who's played Targi and has gone, that was bad. I really don't. So, yeah, give it a go.
Well, after that, we're going to talk about TI4. Now, you are very right. I know you will love this game so much.
Yeah,
I think you will love
will.
it. The thing is it's TI4. Like, when people talk about it, everyone says how long it is and all that, and it is long. I definitely say, like, the minimum would be sort of 4.5 hours to maybe 9 hours for a game.
It's an
depending
investment.
on the group, it's an investment for sure. Yeah. But it's an investment that's an experience. It's like, you know, like, I don't know, bungee jumping or something, or skydiving.
I'm afraid of heights. So
yeah, but you don't do it every week. Do you know what I mean? It's like a once in a lifetime thing or a once in a year thing. Like, it's an experience game. And the experience I had playing it was phenomenal. Had a great time. I thought it was an amazing game. I thought the battle mechanics and stuff were a bit, you know, they were basic, you know, moving into position, rolling a couple of dice, but it was all in the political phase and the negotiation and stuff that really made the game shine, because you can just negotiate like you're actually in a Senate, or if you're actually negotiating with, I could just negotiate with Leigh and be like, Leigh, man, just give me that thing and I'll take it, and then I won't attack you.
Of course not.
And you can do all, exactly. Like, you can do all of that stuff in it, and you can swap things and build tech and upgrade your civilization and invade people or defend. And you can, just like in all those games, there's different ways to obtain victory points. So you're constantly doing different things. You might not have to attack anybody. You might just want to gather resources and collect money and do different things.
Hide in the corner, Adrian? Is that your strategy?
Hide in the corner. That's pretty much it. But it's you know, it's definitely an experience game, and it's not an overly complex game. Anyone that's played it, I think most people would turn around and go, that is not as hard as I thought it was going to be, which is a refreshing thing for something that people are quite worried about starting or playing. I think learning the rules from the rule book and reading through it and stuff would probably be a slog and probably quite interesting. But the game itself is such an experience. Like, everybody who plays it says it's good. I think maybe not Jules, but everybody else thinks it's good. You know, like, and I really think that it's another one of those ones where the group makes the game, because if you've got a bunch of people that are quite quiet and they don't want to negotiate and they don't really want that kind of thing, they just want to play their battle space thing, then it's not the game for them. Whereas if you have a group that all want to yell and shout and go, no, don't give him that because he's going to get this. And if you give him that, he'll destroy us. And, you know, just be up in arms and, you know, getting into it, then it really can be a bit, not role playery, but it almost is in a way. Like, it feels like that, you know, you're defending your faction and you're trying to manipulate the crowd to do what you want. And that's pretty fun.
100%.
What do you think of it, Kenny?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Now, I've only played, admittedly, half a game of it, and it was online. But I can see so much potential in it, right? I totally agree with you in that it's the kind of game where you have to have the group for it. You have to have people who are willing to kind of negotiate and treat the game as a game, right? Because you can get really aggressive with negotiations, or you can be really peaceful, but you need to be able to invest in it, right? But I think that it just has so much going on that the platform and the possibilities for negotiation are really interesting. And the factions as well are so rich and so well established, right? That, I mean, there's a reason it's got 4 editions.
Yeah. 100%. It's interesting because I've never heard anything about the other editions because I don't know those. But I find that quite interesting, the fact that there's obviously been refined and been refined and been refined. So I would like to see someone who's played the first one a lot and played the 4th one a lot, and just to let them explain to me the comparisons between, because I'd find that quite interesting. But we're not battling for the first edition. So we're only battling for the 4th edition. So yeah, if you would like to vote on either of these games on TI4 or Targi, you can do so on our socials, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook story, and the Facebook community page. So
if Targi wins this, it'll be hilarious, because I feel like this is like a David and Goliath
Yeah, exactly what I was
situation. Yeah.
Very much so.
Targi in its tiny little box and TI4 in its coffin.
Yeah. Good luck, Targi. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I think with that, we will move on to the oaths, guys. But before we do that, I'd just like to let everybody know that if you'd like to support the podcast, you can always go to our Patreon page at /BoardGameBBQ and sign up to donate to get access to exclusive podcasts and exclusive content. We're starting to do a little bit more there now with some random polls and some Marvel stuff and things like that. But remember that we wouldn't want you to contribute or donate if it would cause you any financial hardship in any way. In fact, you can always support us without donating by being part of our Discord and joining Kenny in a design chat, and, you know, liking things on Facebook and getting involved with the community, spreading the word about the game days. All that kind of stuff is amazing, and just getting involved with supporting the show, we really appreciate it. And also, don't forget that Dan's oath is to read out any of the 5-star reviews, which have been hilarious. Even one of my laborers from work, the Maori Hulk, sent
nice.
one in, and we read that out. And he's like, I've never played a board game in my life, but I think I know all the rules to Barrage because of working with it. Like, what a legend. Like, funny dude. But yeah, he listens to the show by force, so it's his own problem. But yeah, like, you know, just get involved. The community's great. I mean, these 2 lovely guys here are both in our community, and we've had heaps of chat and banter, and, you know, you see all of that, especially in the Discord. It's like a family in there. So that's the best way you could support the show. So yeah, I really appreciate that. So with this, we will move on to the oaths, and I will get mine out of the way nice and fast, because I actually succeeded in my oath, because I had promised to paint the White Lion and the 4 minis for the Kingdom Death Monster and play the prologue. And
were you praying?
I was. Oh man, it's tough. I don't want to talk about the game too much, because I've only done like the first boss, and we've done the settlement phase and the hunt phase, and we're ready to do the next battle, basically. But phenomenal game, phenomenal. Like, did not disappoint at all for me, not at all. And I think that the group that I played with felt quite similar. But yeah, I've been painting the minis. Like I said, Jules' Discord paint thing has been phenomenal, been really helpful. I've really enjoyed that, just chilling out on a Sunday afternoon, just painting minis and talking about games and random stuff, you know. But it's been great. But yeah, I want to do a different oath, because I feel that there's something coming up that needs to be kind of addressed quite soon. And the fact that I don't believe any of us have played Lords of the Rings Middle-earth, right?
No.
And that's going to be in the bracket battle soon. And you guys in the community put it forward. So I think that I will, unfortunately for you, be your champion and I will play that. And I'm reaching out to the community to teach me on TTS, or if you're local to Brisbane and you know the game and you want to meet up and play that, that'd be amazing. But yeah, I'd like to play the game, have a good look at it, and then I will battle for the Lord of the Rings game when that comes up in the bracket battle in a few weeks' time.
If you do play it on TTS, you have my bow. I'll give it a go.
And my axe.
And your water bottle.
Yeah, my
That's how
giant.
much that was.
My
Used
giant
like an
water
axe.
bottle.
That's right. That's what I'd like to do. So if anyone wants to just DM me on Discord or just at me in the podcast channel, then I will we'll make sure we tee that up one evening and get that played. So
Okay.
see, you guys like get me involved in your oaths and then blame me. So when I fail this, I'm going to blame the community. Look at me go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just passing the buck on.
Pass the buck.
Yeah.
No, I would like to try it as well because it's actually a game quite interesting because I've heard it's got similar things to Mansions of Madness,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the one that has the app-driven stuff.
That's right.
And they interest me because I actually really liked Mansions of Madness, and I really liked the first expansion to Mansions of Madness. I think that elevated that game a lot more than the base game did. I'd like to try the old Lord of the Rings Middle Earth. So
It looks really cool.
So-
I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, so I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that one. I had 2 oaths. I had one that I 3/4 of the way completed, which was to teach you Eclipse, Adrian. The teach I did the teach. I guess it's
You did
The
do that.
understanding that was lacking? Or
No, we didn't finish the game. It's in a save state, so we.
I actually have to say something about that game. I felt that Jules was being really nice.
He
in that
was
game.
being so nice.
I think he would have just destroyed me in
Did
like
he
the third turn.
Valium or something? Like, why
don't
was
know.
he so cool?
He was just like, I knew that he could have destroyed me so early, but he just
Yeah.
let me just like back into the corner and get my resources and do my little thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But yeah,
like,
it was.
maybe
I was really enjoying
maybe
it.
he's just
He's got a
biding-
master plan.
Yeah, I
Don't
think
worry,
he's
he's got
just
a
biding
master
his
plan.
time. He's going to wipe us both out because it was weird that he's basically sent emissaries to both of our things, right? Like he's allied with both of us right now. That seems strange. Maybe he just thinks we're so bad at the game that he can win without fighting. Maybe.
Probably.
So I did that one, and then my other one was to play solo Arkwright the card game again, and I did that, and I got beaten by the bot. But actually, funnily enough, you were talking about solo games for 2021, and this an Arkwright the card game came out in 2021, and the solo mode is very good. I'm really impressed. So this is only the second time I played solo, but I really enjoyed it both times. I think I'm going to play it again. I'm getting into solo a little bit more now. It's got like this, it's got a bit of randomness. So you kind of drawing these cubes out of a bag, and depending on which color you get, it affects the bots differently. So if you get like the purple bot and you're selling clothes in that round, and the purple bot is selling clothes, then they do a certain thing. They sell more, right? And if it's the other bot's color that you draw, then instead the purple bot will gain something else. So it's like, it's very easy to do. It's very easy to manipulate things. It's just draw a cube, and then this is like a few things that are going to happen. I really like that, but it does make it random, which means that you can't forward plan as much with the bots as you would with another player. Because another player, you would be like, Adrian really likes selling cutlery, so I know that he's going to go hard on cutlery. He's going to go so hard
That's
on cutlery.
smooth.
Cutlery here, cutlery.
Adrian the spoon
nice
seller.
cutlery.
that
Yeah.
explains all those strange DMs that I get from Adrian. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Want to buy some half-price silverware, mate?
Sporks, dude, I've got all these
Like,
sporks.
yeah.
Do you want any?
I have a poster of the guy from Mystery Men, the one that throws the forks. The
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
His name
Oh
is.
my God,
I've got a poster of
Mystery
him on my
Man.
wall.
I
He's my idol.
haven't seen that movie, and so it's such a good movie. Anyway, so like, let's say I was playing with Adrian, and he's like the cutlery guy. Then I know that he's going to go hard for cutlery, and then I can try and compete with that. But with the bots, because you're just drawing a cube and then you're manipulating like their shares and their price of their shares and certain things, it means that you can't do that forward planning. But in terms of ease, it's really good. In terms of competitiveness, it is really good. I like I said, I didn't win. I beat one of the bots, but not the other one. We were all very close in score. So I think that is a good sign design-wise, that we were all really close. There wasn't any weird outliers. And the game in a competitive sense against people is amazing. I'm enjoying it more every time I play it. So I think I'll probably still sell it at some point. So, yep. So they were done. Really enjoyed that. Both of them. And I think my next one will be to play Mind Management, the psychic espionage game, with people, because I've only played this was a Kickstarter and I got it months ago, and I got it right smack bang in lockdown, and I couldn't play it with anyone, so I only played it solo with the app. The app wasn't even fully developed yet. It was like just the basic intro game. So I'm going to play that with some people, and I'm really looking forward to it. And there's a lot of buzz about this game, and I'm hoping that it will be something that I pull out and take to the next Sydney game day and teach some people then. So that's my plan. So I, Sarah Green, swear to play Mind Management with people.
It's a good one. I played it recently online.
Yeah? Cool. Online?
Yeah.
Right.
So, guys, you know what's coming.
I do.
Would you like to take part in an oath with us today?
Absolutely. So,
cool.
For me, I'm actually going, when I pop up to Sydney next week, because I'm coming to visit some family for a few days, I am picking up an all-in pledge of The Others, The Seven Deadly Sins, on my way up. And so I, Kenny Michael-Otton, swear an oath to try The Others, Seven Deadly Sins while I am in Sydney.
Nice.
Specifically as the Sin player. I always like to play the one in those games. So I love one versus many games, and this has been one that's been on my radar. But I didn't want to get it unless I could get all 7 sins, and then lo and behold, this popped up. Some kind of providential sign.
Yeah. Well, why not, hey?
Cool.
Yeah.
If you're going to sin, you may as well do all 7.
Right? Exactly.
And yourself, Leigh?
Yeah, I've got one in mind that I'm definitely going to do by the 9th of April. So this one...
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. I've been having so much fun recently, just going back to actually playing games with real people in person, that Grimwald's been on a bit of on the back burner. But I'm going to get the next physical version ready in time for the Sydney game day.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sick. That'll be awesome to see. Yeah, well, you know what to do, guys. Please just put it in the Discord once you've completed the oaths. Obviously, we'll probably see that one, Leigh, on our hashtag BGBQ day.
Yep.
But
otherwise, you can't enter the game day.
Oh,
You haven't done it. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, that's fantastic, and hopefully we can see some of those on our Facebook community and stuff once you've completed them. So, and with that brings us to the end of the show. So thanks for joining us, Kenny and Leigh. That's been awesome. It's been nice to hang out, and I hope that I can playtest your game in the next little while as well, especially Leigh, after some of the additional items go in, and then Kenny, your new tiles and stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
That'll be quite cool to see. So
can you guys quickly give a plug to where
Please.
we can find more information about your game?
Yeah.
Leigh.
I would actually love to hijack the end of the show and give a plug to someone else's game. So in the spirit of Oceania Month, I playtested a game this week. It's not released, but it just won the Ion Award for board game design, and it's by another Sydney designer. So that game's called Klima, Solving the Climate Crisis. Cool. And the designer's Carlos Flores. Great guy, just met him this week. But so in the game, you're it's a co-op game, co-op for bag building game, and the goal of the game is to get to net zero carbon at 2050. So I think pandemic across with all the own. So yeah, I take the chance to plug someone else's game in the spirit of Oceania.
Oh, you're a legend. That sounds amazing too. I need to get on that. I want to play this game.
I'm sure I'll hear more to come. I encourage him to get on the Board Game Barbecue Discord. So, yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking it up now, actually. So that'll be cool to see.
Unfortunately, I don't have something as altruistic.
You can plug me then, Kenny.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll plug you.
Everyone pay it forward.
Yeah, you can find Leigh's game. I believe he has a Grimwald group on Facebook, which is active, and he organizes games there, which is great. So definitely go check that out. It's definitely one that's worth your attention, and I think there's some cool things going on there. For Scrap, so you can either find Scrap on Facebook via the Jolly Swagman Games Facebook page. If you just type in Scrap-Jolly Swagman Games.
And Scrap is all in capitals, right?
Scrap is all in capitals. I think it'll come up even if you don't search the capitals.
You don't have to shout. You don't have to shout the name.
No.
No?
I mean, you can. You can definitely shout it, but no, you do not have to. You can also contact me on Discord. If you see me around on the Board Game Barbecue, I'm always around. And I do have a Discord for it and an email list, which I'm always happy to add people to. It is also on Board Game Geek at the moment. So if you check out Board Game Geek for Scrap in all capitals, it's the 2023 game, not the 2017 game. But yes, you can find it there as well.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, guys. I wish you all the best, and hopefully you can keep us updated about your
Absolutely.
games and your journey.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. That's
You're
great.
welcome.
Well,
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hope your next games are all sizzling ones, Community and Kenny and Leigh. So not so much Sarah, because
Rude.
she, yeah, exactly. That's right.
I taught you a quiz,
good night,
everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone. I get drunk after one wine. I would be a terrible host. If I was on the pod and I had a bottle of wine, I'd be like, I hate Wingspan. I'm being attacked by a wasp.